Frequently cited as the most haunted castle in Great Britain, hundreds of ghost sightings are reported annually at the Tower of London by tourists and London locals alike. Many visitors go there with the hopes of spotting one of its long-dead prisoners. The site of countless tortures, murders, and executions, situated on the north bank of the Thames River, this is said to be a hotbed of spiritual activity. Circulated stories, such as one surrounds a guardsman who went to investigate banging at the guardhouse on his watch. He witnessed a shapeless white figure that may or may not have been the ghost of Lady Jane Grey, who had been beheaded. Anne Boleyn, one of the world's most famous beheadings, reputedly visits the tower frequently, sometimes carrying her own head. Other famous ghosts attending the tower include Henry VI, Thomas Becket, Sir Walter Raleigh, and the Countess of Salisbury, whose gory beheading is said to frequently be reenacted by other ghosts. The tower is now actually a complex fortress of more than 20 towers set within 2 rings of walls and a moat. The various buildings represent an evolving property and pay tribute to the construction styles of many different periods. Its main purposes were to serve as a fortress, royal palace, and prison. It also acted as an execution and torture site, an armory, treasury, zoo, mint, public records office, observatory, and home of the crown jewels. The first structure within the tower's realm was built by William the Conqueror between 1066 and 1067. The central White Tower was the tallest building in London for centuries. Its first prisoner, Ranulph Lombard, was found guilty of extortion in 1100 as Bishop of Durham. He probably regretted then having been responsible for certain design improvements to the tower. Royal prisoners were generally well treated. Religious dissidents, on the other hand, came to understand the crueler side of the tower very intimately. Students of torture shudder at the inventory of devices housed at the tower. They include the scavenger's daughter, a kind of compression device, and the rack, also sometimes referred to as the Duke of Exeter's daughter. Students of hauntings recognize that where there are implements of torture, unhappy spirits are close behind. Henry VIII's unfortunate second wife, Anne Boleyn, was beheaded on May 19, 1536 for infidelity and treason, is one of the most notable of tower residents. There are living residents in the form of the yeomen warders, also known as the beef eaters, and their families. These full-time employees are often on intimate terms with the ghostlier inhabitants, although they very rarely admit it. One unfortunate story revolves around Margaret Pole, the previously mentioned Countess of Salisbury, whose son publicly embarrassed Henry VIII, but escaped his wrath by hiding in France. Unable to punish Cardinal Pole, King Henry VIII instead sent his 72-year-old mother to the block. When she refused to kneel before the executioner, he found himself chasing her around and hacking her to pieces. Her ghost is apparently a popular tower visitor still, as she continues to flee ghostly executioner and his axe. A current employee recounts a story told to him by a retired yeoman warder who used to live in one of the quarters around the outer circle of the tower. When he was sound asleep one night, his wife shook him awake to witness 2 children standing in white nightgowns at the foot of their bed. He didn't see anything. She further recounted that they were holding each other in front of a Victorian fireplace, which he did not see as well. There was nothing but a wall. They chalked the event up to a dream until years later, when they found that a false wall had hidden a Victorian fireplace. The skeletons of 2 young boys were found. The 12-year-old King Edward V and his 9-year-old brother Richard, Duke of York, were murdered in 1483, and their bodies were hidden. It was popularly assumed that the children's uncle Richard had masterminded their murder in order to take the throne as Richard III. These small skeletons that were found beneath a staircase inspired the likely conclusion that they were buried near the foundation of the White Tower. It's most likely that these are the huddled figures that the warder's wife saw before the Victorian fireplace. A 19th century keeper of the crown jewels, E. L. Swift, describes another haunting story he says happened in 1817. He was enjoying a candlelight dinner with his family in the Martin Tower, and his wife spied something across the room. When he screamed, he turned to see a cylindrical object like a glass tube, bubbling with a blue fluid. It appeared to move and approach his wife. Swift threw a chair toward the cylinder, but it passed through the ghostly image and fell to the floor. The cylinder simply backed up and vanished. Here are a few more pictures and events that people have captured in more modern times of the ghostly inhabitants of the Tower of London.